A book like this would normally start with a biography. It would tell you who Proust's parents were, where he was born, who he dated, what he ate for breakfast, and all kinds of other juicy information. There is some juicy information here and there. André Gide took a pass on publishing Swansway when it was offered to him, and Proust had the last laugh by winning the Goncourt Prize in 1919. But there isn't that much of it. And in any case, with apologies to anyone who wanted to hear more of that kind of thing, it isn't what I'm going to focus on. That's partly because biographical information is so readily available online, as well as in some wonderful books, and partly because there's so much else to talk about. But it's mainly because Proust would have disapproved, and I just couldn't look at myself in the mirror if I did it. What I'd rather do instead is explain why Proust would have disapproved. Because, fascinatingly enough, this disapproval ended up generating part of his literary masterpiece, In Search of Lost Time. Why you shouldn't want a biography. Proust was reacting against one of the most prominent critics of the 19th century, Charles-Augustin Sainte-Beuve. When Sainte-Beuve wrote about the novelists of his age, he didn't just analyze and assess their books. He also talked about what they were like as dinner companions. That, Proust thought, is why Sainte-Beuve ended up getting it wrong about giants like Balzac, Stendhal, Nerval, Flaubert, and Manet. Sainte-Beuve's mistake? Explaining the true Fantin or Manet, the one that is only found in their work, on the basis of the mortal man. Proust's conclusion was simple but important. It doesn't matter whether a writer is good or bad company. You can be a brilliant artist and a lousy talker, or a dauber with the gift of the gab. You can make great art but not fully understand what you've accomplished. That's what Proust thought about the painter Chardin. Or even get it wrong about what you've accomplished. That's what Proust's narrator thinks about the playwright Molière. You can be an unfaithful spouse who writes moralizing fiction, or a faithful spouse who writes libertine fiction. That's what Proust's narrator thinks about Madame de Genlis and Chourdelot de la Clue, respectively. So what we know about an author's life tells us next to nothing about her novels. In fact, as a famous line in an early Proust manuscript puts it, a book is the product of a different self from the self we manifest in our habits, in our social life, in our vices.